Hi, welcome to this week's Dragonblade Authors Unplugged. I'm so excited. We've got a full house again. We've got Abigail Bridges, Sara Adrien, and Fil Reid. Ladies, thanks so much for taking the time to join us.
So nice to be here.
Yeah, I love it here.
I thought we'd just dive right in, and we'll start with the first book that released this week, which is Abigail's book, and it's A Lion in Waiting, which is obviously a Lion's Den book. So, can you tell us about that one?
Yeah, the lion. Sorry, A Lion in Waiting picks up Red from the last book in my Ashton Park series. That book was called "The Duke I Came For," and it concluded that series about the four children of Duke of Kennett. And the heroine of that book, Beth, became involved with the Duke of Kirkstone. Now, the Duke had a sister who was in a bit of a pickle. That she had gotten, she's very young and very susceptible to being, her father's death and loneliness of being stuck in the north. And her family home is up in the Lake District. And so they were, her brother and her mother ran off to London to take care of the estate and all the things that went along with that and left her behind. And she was seduced by the local vicar. This is not a spoiler.
Well, that's not something you normally hear of happening.
Yeah, and so what happened is that her brother and his new wife came up with this plan to save her reputation, so she could still have a season in London. Everybody wanted her to have a season in London. And the problem was this book picks up, they've gotten back to London. He now has an appointment to India, and he and the new wife are about to go off to India. The problem is that by the time they get to London, the vicar's been there ahead of them. He's spilled all the tea, so to speak, and
That's
so now
dastardly.
he's struggling. He's a nasty character. It's the first time I've made a clergyman this much of a villain, but he's a despicable character. Anyway, so they need to get her settled quickly, and so they turn to Mrs. Dove Lion for help, and she puts Mary together with Lord Thaddeus Bolton, who is a second son who is in a great deal of debt to the Lion's Den, and he also has some other dark secrets. So the idea is that her conflict is she's not real thrilled about being sold, as she says, sold off to the highest bidder, and he is still kind of having his one true love that he was not allowed to marry because he's a second son who is impoverished and has been displaced by his nephew, and so he's in debt, got all these problems. So as they come together, they discover some things about each other that are a little unique and unexpected. And one of Mary's troubles in society is that she's very clever and she's got a wicked sense of humor and she can be very, very sarcastic. Not a good look for a debutante. But that's exactly what Thad is looking for. It was
Fun.
the woman he loved was a bluestocking, and so he's fascinated by this woman and her secret. So that's the step, and so it's them bantering back and forth, and the obstacles that comes from him having so much debt and why he has that debt, and again she had the baby by the vicar, and her brother and Mary, her brother and his wife, Beth, have told everybody the baby is theirs. That they were the one.
Dastardly secret baby, too.
It's a secret baby. And so that's part of the tropes for that is we have the secret baby, we have a ruined reputation, we have John who is in debt, he's the impoverished second son, and he's a virgin. So that I made the choice to make him a virgin, which is a running joke between him and his best friend. And there, for instance, there's a couple of lines where he's teasing his friend about all the women his friend beds, and he said, on the other hand, you never bed anybody. And so I don't know why I came up with this idea to bring Mary's story to a close, but it just seemed natural when I started looking at the other books to see what I bring forward and link to other things. My first Lionsden novel was linked to this series in a different tangent, in a different way, and so that's bringing all the books together in the series and doing the cross ties and everything is something that I just love doing. So anyway,
that sounds delicious.
So it's bringing these two together and seeing how they work things out. And I get to throw Wordsworth in the middle of it. So.
Oh, fantastic! I drugged my family for my senior year to the Lake District because I was such a Wordsworth fan.
I recently bought his sister's Grasmere journals, so I'm looking forward to getting into those. So.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, it sounds like such a twisty kind of premise and stuff, and I think we have to read it to figure out how it all works out. And everybody gets there happily ever after. Awesome. Well, that's very, very cool. The next book that launched this week is Sarah's book, and it's The Scent of Intuition, and it's book 2. Book 2?
Yeah.
Of Miracles on Harley Street.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm excited to hear about this one. Can you tell us about it?
Yes, absolutely. So it actually releases today. And I've had the first couple of reviews, which I'm really excited about.
Oh, good.
I'm really, really excited. Yeah, so I poured a lot of my heart into this one. So I'll tell you about the hero. He is the connection to the series. His name is Alfie Collins. He's the apothecary at 87 Harley Street. So for anyone who doesn't know the series, my current Lionsden books, all 3 of them that have come out, and book 1, of course, they're all doctors on Harley Street, which is still to this day a famous street where there are lots of very exclusive doctors. And you can imagine if people from the town walk in and out, there's scandal and secrets. So that's really fun. But of course, all these doctors and also Alfie the apothecary are commoners. And we have a lot of the gentry versus nobility tropes in the series, and then there's a lot more. So Alfie has a problem from the previous book, which was Nick the eye surgeon's, Nick the oculist story, and he sort of had to poison someone. And he couldn't find, so, that's an ethical issue, and Alfie is very ethical. So he got to do it with a very beautiful girl, though. And we know her as the cousin from book 1.
Oh, cool.
She's really sweet. Her name is Lady Beatrice Weatherby. And bless you. And she comes and asks Alfie essentially for a love potion because she wants to marry a foreign prince who's in town. And the faster she can marry him, the faster she can get away from her mother nagging her to get married. And so the reason why I really love Bia is because she's everything that the perfect girl at the ton would be. She makes an entrance when she comes to every ball, but she doesn't value any of it because her best friend in life is her cousin Pippa from book 1, who's the clumsy girl. So if anyone read book 1, she's the clumsy girl. And Bia just doesn't like that society is making fun of her beloved, dear cousin Pippa. So she thinks they're full of hypocrites. And if she can marry this prince and he will take her far away to his country, then she thinks she can escape it all. Plus, she has this dark secret that I won't tell you about. You have to read the book for that. But
That's like a dark secret.
Yeah, it's a dark secret, but you have to read the book. So she comes to Alfie's apothecary at 87 Harley Street, and she wants his love potion for the prince. And Alfie's like, well, she's very pretty. I don't want to give her a love potion. And he's like, there is no love potion. And love potions aren't real. And she's like, make me something as close as possible to a love potion, because, she's not used to having people say no to her. And it is sort of Alfie's second chance to make things right, which is, of course, terrible timing when he is so morally conflicted and ethically conflicted. They didn't have rules of professionalism yet, but the doctors in Harley Street, who I love very much, and I keep loving them more and more as I'm writing all this series, they have their own pacts of virtue and honesty and truth and, do no harm. They didn't technically have the Hippocratic Oath for apothecaries to this time. They didn't have it for dentists, which will be book 5. They still don't, but my characters for each other have the highest standards. So there's this adventure that they start. And besides the love potion, we also get into trouble with the truth serum.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, so which Alfie wishes he didn't have to make. And he's very conscious of the dosage of it because, again, he wants to do no harm.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's the pressure from the prince, and then there's the pressure from Bea, and lots of tugging in all the different directions. So there were times in the book where I was like, should I keep raising the stakes? I kind of felt bad for Alfie because I love him so much. And he's like, maybe I shouldn't. But there is the element of the forbidden love, which he has to get over. And it's a big struggle till the very end. And I think that all made the happy ending so much more spectacular. Yeah, and then we'll see him again in the next book.
Yeah. I think having to work for it always makes it a little bit sweeter as a reader when we get, to the.
It's super sweet. Yeah.
So you have a little bit of a love triangle in this one then too, with the prince and Alfie and the heroine.
Yes, there's a little bit of a love triangle. I'll let you read it if you want to see to what extent it is reciprocated or not. But I will also tell you that I love this prince so much. He is getting a whole book in the series, so his will be book 4.
Good.
Yeah, I'm writing it right now.
Oh, fun. Oh, yeah. I love it when a character starts talking so much, so you're like, oh, well, I guess you need your own story too.
Yeah, that happens to me sometimes.
Awesome. And there are 5 books in the series?
Yes, there are 5, plus they are all connected to my Lion's Den book, so there are an extra 4. 3 have come out already, and then there will be a winter special where all the characters come back.
Oh, fun. Oh, I love those when we get to see everybody all over again.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Oh, there's so much to look forward to there. Yay.
Thank you.
So the next book that came out this week is Phil's book, and it's The Cornish Widow, and it's book 4 in the Cornish Ladies series.
Yes.
Can you tell us about this one?
Well, all 4 of the books take place in the same sort of area of Cornwall. So some of the characters from the other books come into this book, and the villain of book 1 is the villain of book 4 as well.
Oh,
but technically, he's really not a villain because he's a preventative man. Because the hero of this book is the smuggler, and the heroine is the Cornish widow. Her name's Harriet, and she married very early. Her mother was dead, and her father let her marry a soldier, an officer that she met at the assembly rooms in Truro. And she was only 17, and she fancied she was in love with him, and he turned out to be, well, not a very nice husband.
Oh.
Yeah, so they had 2 children. He didn't like it when she was pregnant with the first child, and he certainly didn't like the second one. So she's got a daughter. She's not as young as most heroines. She's only 33 though, and she still looks very young. And her daughter's 15, and her son is 12. And the husband is just after Waterloo. He fought at Waterloo and died at Waterloo, so she's been left a widow. He was an inveterate gambler, and as well as not being very nice, he just lost all their money. She now is left with 2 children to bring up, no money, and she falls upon the charity of her late husband's aunt, who's a lady in Cornwall called Mrs. Bolitho, which is a very Cornish name. And Mrs. Bolitho offers her a cottage. So the book starts where she and her children arrive at the cottage, and it is in the most appalling state because this woman has just not taken into account the fact the last person who lived there fell over the cliff when he was drunk.
Oh,
So,
no.
yeah, and it hasn't. Nobody's done it. His dinner is on the table, and this was several years ago. So it's like dried and with the dinner on the table, and it's covered in dust. It's an okay cottage, but it's really dirty. Anyway, a lady comes, a neighbour who lives in a big house up. There's a long track down from the main road. I mean, it's not really much of a main road. It's basically potholes and things. Anyway, further up the track lives her nice neighbour, and her nice neighbour comes down and knocks on her door and comes to her rescue, sends the servants down. They're not actually her servants, they're her son's servants. He's the hero. Sends the servants down to help her get the house ready because her daughter, the boy, is really happy. He's really happy. They're right on the coast. They're above a little cove. And in the course of my research, I was researching Cornish smugglers, and I discovered there is a cove called Prussia Cove. It wasn't always called Prussia Cove, but in the mid to late 18th century and the very early 19th century, there was the most famous smuggler in Cornwall was a man called John Carter. He had a family, so there were quite a lot of them doing this smuggling, and they lived at Prussia Cove. And it was called Prussia Cove because when he was a boy, he used to say he was the king of Prussia. So they called Prussia, and it's still called Prussia Cove now. It's a real place. And the next door to it is Bessie's Cove, and then round the corner is Piskey's Cove, and that's like a pixie. It's a Cornish piskie instead of a pixie. So I thought, I am going to use this because it's the perfect place. And sadly, I went down there in the spring to have a good look at it, and it's really steep, and I don't like heights.
Oh,
So
no.
I was really scared. I couldn't go down. I was really, and I couldn't walk around the edge either because you can walk around the edge and you come to a sort of, it looks like a hut, but I made it the house of one of the smugglers. And then there's a long track that goes down, and there's a really narrow, long inlet, which is where the ships used to come in and unload their smuggled goods. And I wanted to go and stand there on it, and I couldn't.
Oh, no.
Anyway, the hero of the book is the son of the lady who lives in this house, and he's called Jack Trevelyan. And he's a handsome, dashing smuggler, but only a part-time smuggler because he's rich. He's well off. He's not poor. I mean, he's not hugely rich, but he's not poor either. And he has a secret. I mean, you'd think his secret would be smuggling, but he's got more. He's got more of a secret than that, and she has to find out what the secret is. So it's to do with his mother. Well, no, I'm not going to say. But he's very handsome. He's really cross when he finds out that someone's moved into this cottage because it's where he does all his smuggling. And he thinks, oh, moved in there. They're going to see what I'm doing. And when he meets her, he's not all that happy about her, and he thinks she might be a spy because he thinks, what better way to spy on someone than to send someone who doesn't look like a spy? No, she's not a spy, but he thinks she might be. And they don't. When they kind of get on, but he also completely falls for her as soon as he sees her. But he's in denial about it. I like them being in denial and not realizing that they love each other for quite some time because she, had a bad experience with her husband. She doesn't want to marry someone. She doesn't want to fall in love. He doesn't want to fall in love with somebody who thinks he's a spy. So in the end, they get thrown together because Theo is very keen on boats. He wants to be friends with the captain. So one night, go fair through through the book. He goes down to the ship because it's in this little dock, and he gets up in the middle of the night and goes down there. So Harriet follows him. She's a bit worried he's sleepwalking. Anyway, she can see this light bobbing along, so she follows him. But she's wearing her nightgown because she gets up in the middle of the night. She's worried he's going to fall off the cliff like the previous occupant.
Legitimately, yeah.
She's very worried. So she follows him, and they end up at the ship. And they're just he's gone down in the hold to have a look, which is full of contraband tobacco because they're taking tobacco to France in order to bring brandy back again. Because tobacco was cheap in our country, I think, but in France there was a lot of revenue. They had to pay a lot for it, so that's why they were quite like that. Anyway, the sailors all come back, so they hide in the hold, and the next thing they know, they've gone to sea.
Oh no!
Very, very rough. She's wearing her nightie and dressing gown and a cloak. Theo's actually wearing his clothes, but they are both violently sick.
Oh my
And
goodness.
when they get discovered, I mean, they've been sick on tobacco and things like that as well.
Oh no.
They end up having to go to France, so that throws them together. But that's kind of, well, I'm not going to say the end of it, but that's how they end up getting together.
Well, it sounds like a very exciting, unexpected voyage, though.
A very unexpected voyage, yeah.
How many more books are there in the series, Phil?
This is the last one. I would like to write some more, but I've written another series for next year because Catherine asked me to write some books with set in London. So I've written 3 of those. Although actually the third one isn't really set in London because it's the wrong time of the year. But 2 of them are set in London. I would like to go back to the Cornish ones though because I love writing about Cornwall because that's where I live now.
Yeah. Are you still on the boat?
No, I'm not in the boat now. We sold the boat last year. I've not been in the boat for a year. We've been living down in Cornwall. I think if we did, there's no canals in Cornwall, not one at all. And it was a canal boat, so we couldn't have brought it down here.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to the new series next year as well. So awesome. Well, I love when you said that that you like it when they're in the aisle for a little bit and that he falls in love. I love a good he falls first. And so I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about our favorite tropes, the things that you like to write and also the things that you like to read. Does anybody have something that's a particular favorite?
I'm working on some age gap.
I love it.
Except it's the woman who's older.
Reverse age gap. Oh, cool.
And so the first one, the age gap is not too much, but I've been listening to some readers who've been asking for older characters. And you know, if you're working with debutantes, you're working with 17-year-old girls, and so I've been listening to people who are like, you know, that's well and good, and we love a good juicy romance with young characters, but can you give us something that we can relate to, a little bit older characters? So in the work in progress right now, my heroine is about to turn 40. And,
oh, wow. Oh, cool.
And so the hero is younger, not by much, but younger, which is unusual for that time period. But I'm working on one that's going to be in a series of that where the heroine is going to be about 14 years older than the hero. And so for a lot of different reasons. So I'm trying out that. The tropes in Lying in Waiting are obviously the virginal hero, the secret BB, the ruined reputation, and stuff like that. The tropes I've worked with in the past have been impossible relationships. One of my novellas, By the Rosemary Tree, which is part of the Ashton Park series, it's about the parents, has a biracial heroine and from a different culture. And I was all about, you know, integrating this and bringing this. And I discovered that under the laws of the period, they could not marry. The aristocracy could not marry someone from a different country who was not a citizen of the country. If you were not a British citizen, you could not marry into the aristocracy. And so it's them overcoming that. So I look for tropes, and I love hearing from other authors what tropes they're working on, and from readers what are their favorite tropes.
Yeah.
But I liked your Villain's Vicar. Did you know? Have you read the Poldark books?
I have not read the books. I saw the series, the original series with
There's
Robin.
a really nasty vicar in that, the Reverend Ozzy Whitworth. He's awful. When you were talking about your Villainous Vicar, I was thinking about him.
Oh yeah, I don't know why. Actually, clergy had been some of my favorite heroes in the past, but for the last couple of books, my clergymen have been really nasty. But Poldark is one of my favorite stories, and I've gotten the book several times, but I've never actually read the books.
Yeah, I've read all of them.
But
They go through to about 1820. They cover a long period of time.
So it's one of those books that I love big books, but I'm a little bit ADHD, and so big books can be a bit of a struggle for me. And but yeah, I love the Poldark story and the whole premise and the setup and everything like that.
Cornwall has a great deal to give from the point of view of authors, because we live really close to Menabili, which is where Daphne du Maurier lived, and it was the basis for Manderley in Rebecca.
Yes.
And we walked down to the cove where Rebecca's ship was sunk. So,
oh my goodness. Phil, do you have a favorite trope?
Not really, no. I don't really think in tropes. I just kind of, because I think if I was a planner, I might, but I'm not. I'm kind of a pantser, so I just sit down and write. I don't think, I'm going to make this, that, or the other happen. It just kind of happens. Someone said if you're not a pantser, you're a discovery writer.
Discovery writer sounds so much better.
Yes, doesn't it? Yeah.
Better PR.
Yeah, I do quite like it when they don't like each other, and when they don't realise they're in love, and they fight against it. So I guess that's a trope I like.
Yeah, I like that one too. And I like the he falls first. I like it when the hero falls first, especially when he doesn't want to, and then it's like, oh man, here I am. You know. So,
yeah. I've got my next series is called Mismatched Lovers, and it's about people that kind of aren't very well matched. And you wouldn't expect them to get together because they've got too many differences. So that kind of plays into what I like to do.
Awesome. Sarah, what about you?
I love tropes. So I also, when I read books, I know pretty quickly how I'm going to like it. So in this series, Miracles on Harley Street, I have a lot of the gentry versus nobility issues. And I started with the problems getting worse. They're basically, some of them, the same tropes, but they get worse as we go, because it's one thing if you want to be with the daughter of a duke or an earl. It's a whole other thing if there's a princess and a prince.
Yeah.
So where are they prince and princess? Where's your prince from? Is he an English prince?
Transylvania.
Oh, he's a vampire.
No, the vampires, that's the problem. The vampires came much later. That whole story comes later. But there's Bran Castle, which is later tied to the vampires. The family is actually Hohenzollern and Sigmaringen, so they go back to the Austrian Empire. And they speak all the languages in the series that I speak. So I don't know how the audiobook is going to work out unless I do it, but that's going to be fun. So I have in many of my books virgin heroines. I also sometimes have virgin heroes. It turns out that I really love the cinnamon bun heroes, which I didn't realize it was a thing until it turns out to be my thing. There is some forbidden love element often in my books. Second chances, and sometimes I really love to explore the second chances with the same person. And then there's a lot in this series. I think I've mentioned this last time. There's a lot of healing and forgiveness, and you need that. You need to embrace that. I think to have realistic doctors or the apothecary, there has to be healing, and sometimes that is in itself the second chance. In book 5 in this series, I'm going to explore what I have already in some of my Lion's Den books, which are Jews and minorities. Because in Regency England, they didn't have many rights. They couldn't own property. They couldn't own land. And it's funny when, like, the members of the Tauntauns just get a special license. I mean, put some money on the table. And I'm like, there's no special license I could get. And plus, it's not even what I need. What I need is something completely different. So I like to explain that, and I like to take certain subjects in history and then dive a little deeper. Just, some of my readers really like that. they come out of reading one of my books. They're like, I didn't know that.
Love
You
that
know,
part. Yeah,
it's
I love that
fun.
when I get to learn something. And also, I think those issues of social justice, it's really good if in stories we bring them to the front of our heads and kind of hold them in the front of our heads, because
Yeah.
it wasn't that long ago. Yeah.
And I'm a lawyer by training, so sometimes when I read these laws, and it's like, wait a minute, that's still on the books, though. It's one thing if I put it in my fiction books, that's great, but why is that still on the books? So I can't really sometimes put it in the stories, but then I have a very long author's note. Like, did you know, by the way,
Oh, cool.
yeah. So you can't, you can't slaughter 3 goats in a row after a pig or something. They have like these random laws. It's like, who would police that? But anyway, I digress. My very, very favorite trope it's true. Like I have a couple of funny ones. But arranged marriage is my absolutely favorite trope. It can be either the reason why the hero and heroine are kept apart or why they come together. So I really love that.
Yeah, that is a good one. Ladies, it was delightful talking to you today. I really appreciate you taking the time to do it. I just want to piggyback on something that Sarah said earlier about the first reviews coming in, because I'm not sure that readers understand how important that is to writers to see, to see the reviews come in and to have, because writing is such a solitary undertaking, that having a little bit of connection with readers, a tangible connection in the other direction, is really, really helpful for writers. So if you've ever thought about it, or you thought, well, it doesn't really matter, or they don't want to hear from me, they do. Ladies, thanks so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you.
See you back here at the same time next week. I'll make sure to put the links in the comments. You want to get your Dragonblade books pre-order and release, they're the very best deal then. If you don't get them then, you can always read in Kindle Unlimited.